Hello, God bless. This particular day that I'm making this, doing this reflection is very dismal. Even though it's Tuesday, Mardi Gras, it's anything but Fat Tuesday. It's dismal Tuesday. As we get ready for Lent, Lent is the challenge to get back on track if we haven't been on track. Lent is the time to say, am I making the Lord first? What do I need to do to make the Lord the center of my life? There are different strategies that people use, and hopefully it does really work. Because Lent is a time of dying, so that we could be reborn to God's life within us, so that we could be re-energized. Because Lent is the preparation for Easter. Lent is the purification, so that we can be open to and accessible for God's grace to enter into us and be effective. In this first reading, the first Sunday of Lent, February the 14th, power of God. When the Egyptians maltreated and oppressed us, imposing hard labor upon us, we cried to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and he heard our cry and saw our affliction, our toil, and our oppression. And he answered. He answered very positively. He delivered them from that oppression. God confronts worldly power and joins with us. Confronting the devil in the third reading. Filled with the Holy Spirit, Jesus returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the desert for 40 days to be tempted by the devil. Status quo is not something that God accepts. Moving forward, that's the only way. Life should be a pilgrimage to the Lord, always growing, maturing more and more spiritually, and in every other way possibly too, but most especially spiritually. Looking back on the parables about the talents, the Lord wants us to grow. The Lord wants us to advance. The Lord wants us to achieve something with the life that we have been given. It's not enough to bury the talent and just hand him back the one. That's receives the Lord's rejection and condemnation. We must grow. Going out to meet the enemy. That's what the Lord is calling Jesus to, us to. Jesus was protected living with Mary in Nazareth, but he came into this world not just to live with Mary in Nazareth, but to deliver the world from sin. Just the fact that he adventured out into the world outside of his home meant he was going into a world of danger, temptation, difficulty. This is rather symbolic, going into the desert, meeting head on the devil, because he was going to meet the devil in his ministry. Because the devil in many ways was possessed the world at the time. Not that the devil doesn't do the same thing now, but he was challenging the devil on his own turf, so to speak. God's grace came to Jesus and was more than adequate. The point really has to be brought out. First of all, that Jesus is both human and divine. What does that mean in this situation? In other words, is the temptation real? How can God be tempted? In the sense of temptation and the danger of sinning, of course, God can't be tempted. But Jesus, in his humanity, could be tempted. Otherwise, why would Jesus go so often to pray to God the Father? He was already God. He didn't need to pray. But in his humanity, he needed to pray, to grow in the Lord. He was an example for us in his humanity of what we must do, should do in our humanity. The humanity he had was not a veneer, but was he himself. It's been written by theologians that the presence of God the Son had to maintain some, so to speak, distance, allowing the humanity to function as humanity. Otherwise, if God's divinity came too close to the humanity, it would have utterly destroyed his humanity. So overpowering, so awesome, magnificent is God's divinity. So we have to respect, so to speak, the need to let Jesus in his humanity to be truly human. So the temptations were real. Now, on the other hand, God would have, of course, never allowed Jesus to ever sin. But that was not going to happen. He never was going to need to interfere with Jesus' free will. Because Jesus, in his humanity, was so deeply committed to God, so delivered over to God's Spirit within him. There was no question that he was ever going to be tempted and sin. Tempted, yes. Sin, no. God's grace is always adequate to us. That's so very important. And on the other hand, God is never saying that we could test him, which means that we could put ourselves in danger of sin by our own free will. That means we're demanding that God prove himself. God does not take that kind of a challenge. He says, if you're going to be such a simpleton, then you deserve to fail and fall on your face. Because there's plenty of temptations that will come by way of just living in this world on their own. Face those. Never willingly put yourself in danger of sin, in near occasion of sin. Jesus, when he teaches us to pray, through the end of the Our Father says, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I think what he's saying there is he realized the danger of sin, the danger of temptation, that we need to respect, so to speak, the danger that temptation puts us in. But at the same time, if we live in the strength of God, we can be at peace. Because it's by God's strength, not by our own. Because if it's by our own, on our face we will fall. Secondly, in our own lives, sin is not total failure. Sin is one of those things by which we can go as an opportunity to go to God and say, Lord, I was trying to do it on my own, where I went off and was forgetful of you. Dear Jesus, help me by your power to be my life. Through your love, be my life. And returning to the Lord after a failure like sin, we are going to be twice as well off. Because then we've really learned the school of hard knocks by doing the wrong thing and then saying, oh no, I won't do that again. Well, we might do it again, but we just go back again and again and again and again. Dear Lord, be my life daily. Toward the end of the second reading, Paul's letter to the Romans, he says, the same Lord is Lord of all, enriching all who call upon him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. He is our power. He is our strength. Dear Jesus learned that when he went to the top of the mountain to pray. Let us follow his example. Be people of prayer, fed not just daily, but all through each day by being people of prayer, going to him, asking for his help, living in his strength. God bless you all.